Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
F? You're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. That's right. It is the 30-something movie podcast. I am your host, John Reed, and I am here with my league of our own. I've got some wonderful, upstanding gentlemen with me here this evening, and Pat's here too. Hi, Pat.
That's right. I am here. I am not a gentleman.
Okay. So Pat is here, as you can tell. Jeff is also here. Jeff, how's it going?
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm a little cold, actually, but...
As I say, you've got like the Emperor Palpatine hoodie action going on.
You know, I'm down in the man cave right now, and it's a little chilly down here.
Okay.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Bo.
Hi, guys.
Hey, you guys.
Hey, Bo.
All right.
Should we just record the whole episode like that?
We could.
That wouldn't be offensive to anyone.
A League of Their Own is a good movie.
Have you seen my baseball movie?
There's a mashup for you.
What did you mean by mashup?
Let's move on.
Moving on. Yikes.
Moving on.
Just be aware. There are possible spoilers here as we start talking about movies. Also, do not forget to visit our website, 30podcast.com, where you can rate, leave a voicemail, or become a co-executive producer via Patreon. So if you want to go check that part of it out, because we've got some great Patreon episodes as well that are exclusive to those who join us there, that's at 30podcast.com. Because this is the first episode of February, we're going to jump in the DeLorean and head back in time to this month in February of 1992. A few things that were going on in February of 92. Feel free, if you guys remember anything you were doing in February of 92, you can jump in and interject anytime you want. Some top news things going on. February 5th, jury selection begins in the trial of Los Angeles police charged with the beating of Rodney King. February 15th, the 100th episode of Cops airs on Fox.
What you gonna do?
Bad boys. And February 20th, Ross Perot announced that he will run for president on Larry King Live.
That's right, Ross Perot.
Births for, I only found a couple I just found one that I wrote down here. Anybody a fan of the Twilight movies? Not in this crowd?
Crickets.
Kind of figured
Cricket.
not. Okay,
Cricket.
all right. Well, Taylor Lautner, who was in the Twilight movies, was born on February 11th, 1992.
Oh, good for him.
Deaths, there were a couple of notable deaths in February of 92. February 10th, Alex Haley, the writer of the autobiography of Malcolm X and Roots, died at age 70 in February of 92. And on February 20th of 92, Dick York, the actor who played Darren on Bewitched, died of emphysema at age 63. One of the top sports things in here, February 16th, the LA Lakers retire Magic Johnson's number 32 uniform. Top book was Hideaway by Dean Koontz. Top movies were The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Medicine Man, and Wayne's World. And then the top songs for February of 92 were Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me by George Michael and Elton John, I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred.
Too sexy for my love, too sexy for my love, love's going to leave me.
And To Be With You by Mr. Big. Which, Bo, wasn't that one of yours when we did our favorite songs episode?
It was.
Yeah.
It was top, one of the top on the playlist for our wedding, and that song still has a special place in my heart.
That's what I thought. Well, that is it for February of 92. We'll be back here next month, first episode next month for March of 92, so we can see what's going on then. Our movie this time is A League of Their Own. It came out on the 1st of July, 1992. It was rated PG, had a runtime of 2 hours and 8 minutes. Directed by Penny Marshall, who died in 2018. She also did Big and Awakenings. Producers on this one were Elliot Abbott and Robert Greenhut. Elliot Abbott also did Awakenings and Renaissance Man. Greenhut did Working Girl and Dog Day Afternoon. Writers for this one, Kim Wilson, Kelly Candale. I probably said that wrong. Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel. Wilson did A League of Their Own. That's the only credit on there. Candale. I'm probably saying that absolutely wrong, but we'll work with it. Did a documentary called When Hope and History Rhymed. Gans did Laverne and Shirley and Multiplicity, and Mandel did Multiplicity and Splash. Cinematography was done by Miroslav Ondracek, who died in 2015. Did the cinematography for Amadeus and Hair. Editor for this one was Adam Bernardi and George Bowers. Bowers died in 2012. Bernardi did I Love Trouble and Beastmaster 2. Bowers did Buckaroo Banzai and Money Train. Music was done by Hans Zimmer, who did Gladiator and Inception. Budget was $40 million. Box office was $132.4 million. Flickmetrics gives this one a 71%, and Cinema Score did not have a score for this one. Starring Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan. He was in Apollo 13 and Castaway. Geena Davis played Dottie Henson, the catcher. She was in The Fly and Thelma and Louise. Lori Petty was Kit Keller. She was the pitcher. She was in Tank Girl and Point Break. Madonna played May Mortabito. She was a center fielder. She was in Evita and Die Another Day. Rosie O'Donnell played Doris Murphy, the third base. She was in the Flintstones and Sleepless in Seattle. Megan Cavanaugh played Marla Hooch. She was second base. She was in Robin Hood Men in Tights and Dracula Dead and Loving It. Tracy Rayner played Betty Horn, left field and pitcher. She was in Die Hard and Pretty Woman. Biddy Schramm played Evelyn Gardner. She was right field.
She was in Die Hard?
Yeah, she was somebody's administrative assistant. She was a secretary in Die Hard.
Oh. I'll have to go back and watch for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. Biddy Schramm was in the TV series Monk and the movie One Fine Day. Ann Cusack played Shirley Baker. She was left field. She was in Grosse Pointe Blank and Accepted. Ann Ramsey played Helen Haley. She was first base. She was in Mad About You and the 2001 Planet of the Apes. Freddie Simpson played Ellen Sue Gotlander. She was the shortstop and pitcher. She was in Popcorn and Thunderbolt Row. Renee Coleman played Alice Gaspers. She was left field and center field. Left field and catcher. She was I think she was the evil leaper in Quantum Leap when they did like those 3 episodes of the like demonic leaper or whatever it was.
Ooh, yeah, that was
Mirror
intense.
Universe Leaper,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah, she had a goatee and everything. It was weird.
And
she
a
was
sash.
in that, and
Don't you have to have a sash in the Mirror Universe?
probably, yeah. And then the movie Who's Harry Crumb? David Strathairn played Ira Lowenstein. He was in L.A. Confidential and Good Night and Good Luck.
He's such an underappreciated Hollywood talent.
Yes, he is. He is awesome in every movie I've ever seen him in. I can't think of a bad performance. Gary Marshall, who died in 2016, played Walter Harvey. He was in Pretty Woman and Never Been Kissed. John Lovitz played Ernie Capadino. He was in Mr. Destiny and The Three Amigos. Bill Pullman played Bob Henson. He was in Independence Day and Spaceballs. And Eddie Jones, who died in 2019, played Dave Hooch. He was in Lois and Clark and Sneakers. As America's stock of athletic young men is depleted during World War II, a professional all-female baseball league springs up in the Midwest, funded by publicity-hungry candy maker Walter Harvey. Competitive sisters Dottie and Kit spar with each other, scout Ernie, and grumpy has-been coach Jimmy Dugan on their way to fame. Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell co-star as 2 of the sisters' teammates.
I'd like to lead you all in a little prayer. Dear Lord, may our feet be swift, may our bats be mighty, and may our balls be plentiful. And Lord, I just like to thank you for that waitress in South Bend. You know who she is. She kept calling your name.
This summer, Tom Hanks is managing the impossible, the Rockford Peaches.
Go Peaches! Who says girls can't play baseball? Who says women can't throw?
Slide! Slide! Thank you!
Give them a league of their own to play. Then stand back and get out of their way.
That sounded good.
So let's all root for the girls' team. Let's give the poor coach a break.
You're still missing the cutoff man. Now, that's something that I would like you to work on before next season.
'Cause it's Flash, Flash, we're having a bash at the old ball game.
Got him!
Columbia Pictures would like to take you out to the ball game for an all-star comedy.
They'll pay you $75 a week.
We only make 30 at the dairy.
Well then, this would be more, wouldn't it?
The manager, Tom Hanks.
Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
The catcher, Geena Davis.
What do you say we slip in the back seat and you make a man out of me? What if I smack you around for a while? Can't we do both?
The pitcher, Lori Petty.
I made it! I'm a peach! A Rockford peach!
The scout, John Lovitz.
Are you coming? See how it works is, the train moves, not the station.
And batting cleanup, Madonna.
What if my uniform bursts open and oops, my bosoms come flying out?
You think there are men in this country who ain't seen your bosoms?
A League of Their Own.
All right. God knows we have a game. It's not like any of this helps, believe me.
Directed by Penny Marshall.
All right. Our usual
That's
first
a
question.
Trailer for an entirely different movie.
Say it again.
That's a trailer for an entirely different movie. Like I listened to that trailer, and to me that is not what A League of Their Own is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you say that, Jeff. I don't want to derail this thing right away, but that trailer was problematic in several areas. Yeah. And honestly, I felt like I was kind of cringing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they really went out of their way to set up the women to be the butt of the jokes. Just women in general be the butt of the jokes throughout the movie, and that is not at all what this movie had to offer. Very interesting. So what does that say about movies from 30 years ago? I mean, I don't want to come out of the gate swinging, but what did we just? I think that's why we're here is to critique these things. To look at how these things hold up, and right off the bat, that trailer was definitely kind of problematic.
Yeah, you guys ever see Erin Brockovich?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? You remember that when she sits down with the company, the oil company, the PG&E or whatever, and the first statement she goes, "Well, you see, that pisses me off right there." That's kind of how I felt. Like I listened to this and I'm just like, well, that pisses me off right there. Like I just
there's so much heart to these characters. There's so much heart to the stories. There's heartbreak with a lot of these stories, and what it's commentary about different types of relationships and motivation, and it threw a lot of questions out there regarding society and society's values, at the time, the setting of the movie, and clearly at the time that trailer was put together. But that trailer didn't touch on any of that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed in that.
Yeah. I mean, and it sold the thing like a comedy. And I was like, did I miss? Like,
I was just thinking that if I saw that trailer and then went to go see the movie, I would expect to see a stupid kind of comedy.
And not even, but like, hey, look at the hijinks they get up. I mean, it was almost like the movie The Replacements, which wasn't really like a straight up like comedy, but there were definitely, it leaned into the humor, and it was, I would have expected something like that. Yeah, that trailer was.
What would you have replaced? So what are a couple of scenes in the movie that you would have replaced some of the more, where they focus on the comedic stuff and them being the butt of the jokes? Are there any scenes, a couple of scenes in particular that you're like, this would have really showcased what this movie's about better?
I think just maybe one or two of the more dramatic scenes, right? Like maybe a clip of when Kit is yelling at Dottie in the house after she's been traded. Like the whole, like, I was getting too good, wasn't I? I knew you'd find a way to hold me down. Like, maybe that clip. Or, God, I don't know.
It probably needs to be I think it would need to be that for a trailer. If you're trying to catch people's attention, it'd have to be like the dramatic, the yelling, the kind of a fight between them. The one I like would have been some of the scenes when they're on the bus and they're talking to each other. They're either like teaching the one girl to read, or they're talking about what they used to do back home, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or the clip between Lowenstein and
Harvey.
Gary Marshall's character. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, the Lowenstein and Harvey stuff was good, especially when they're talking about.
I sold a product when there was no product. This is a product.
Mm-hmm.
What, and then cut back to what we're supposed to send the men coming back from the war back to the kitchen. Like that type of question, drop that in the trailer. I don't know. There's a lot to this movie that they could have done in the trailer to give the movie, or to paint a better picture of what the experience of this movie will be. And yeah, I don't know. No one's asking me to make trailers, so what do I know?
Yeah.
Other than what they put together was not representative of what this movie is.
Yeah.
So how does it, when we knew that this movie was coming up and you saw it on the list, our usual first question, how does this movie make you feel? Forgetting the trailer and thinking about the actual movie itself, how does this movie make you feel?
To steal a line from Brad Pitt in Moneyball, how can you not be romantic about baseball?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have a word for it, or I can't think of a word for how this movie makes me feel. Nostalgic? I don't think that's the right word.
Maybe you just sum it up. You just need James Earl Jones to come on and say, baseball.
Baseball.
That's all you got to say.
Indeed.
But
because I think it's, to your point, it's nostalgic, but it's just because it just seems like baseball movies, like other baseball movies, even if they're not great, there's just something about a baseball movie that kind of gives you the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like A League of Their Own. It's Major League. It's Field of Dreams. It's
Sandlot.
Yeah. And I don't know that I can describe what those, like why I enjoy those. I just know that I do. And I think a decent portion of it, and I never played baseball as a kid, but I think I loved baseball. I loved going to baseball games with my dad and with my family, and, loved playing pickup ball with friends, but I was never on an actual team, never played. But I don't know. Something about baseball.
But I think that's it. I think, it's for all of us, it's the memories of what baseball means to us, the experience of baseball. Like my experience is watching games with my dad. And yeah, I never played baseball either. But it's a connection point between my dad, and I think that's the experience for a lot of people, is what the game has meant for them and the generation before them. So I think that's where a lot of people land when they start thinking about baseball and baseball movies, is they start thinking about those sorts of connections and memories. Now, is it always baseball? No, because not everybody's into baseball. But I think that when you start talking about baseball, that's where my mind goes as well, is I just think about all of those moments and experiences that my dad and I have had, and hopefully will continue to have for a long time, when we're rooting on our Cubbies and talking baseball, and yeah, all of those feelings come up with a good baseball movie.
Bo, you're a baseball fan. You go to a lot of Cubs games. Is that same feeling for you?
Yeah, Jeff put it into better words than I can. There just aren't words to describe it. Any baseball movie tends to do. It's hard for them to make a bad one, it seems. I'm sure they're out there, but it's hard. And I can't think of one off the top of my head. So definitely predisposed to liking this movie, just by the nature of it being a baseball movie. But, it surpasses even the baseballness of the movie. And so, yeah,
well, and most
nothing but enjoyment from this movie.
Most baseball movies seem to have a level of respect for the sport, or a level of love for the sport that they're trying to honor. that always seems to come through. Even, you know, compare Field of Dreams and Major League, two very different types of baseball movies. A League of Their Own and The Rookie or The Sandlot or whatever. They all come from an angle that seems to appreciate and love the sport, but then using that to comment on larger ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, Pat, what do you got?
Well, I think I went to the theater to see this movie with the family when it came out. And my mom was a big baseball fan. My dad kind of, I don't want to say take it or leave it, like he was dismissive of it, but I mean, it wasn't as much as like football and stuff, but mom was a big baseball fan. And so, yeah, we went and saw it. And yeah, I just think it's just no justs in there, but I think what my feeling is it's just a great story. There's a ton of heart. It's about family. It's about sisters interacting. And in many ways, I mean, it's refreshing to see a film that's about women, right? I mean, what other movies have we reviewed so far that's kind of like that? Thelma and Louise is centered, it's a completely different topic matter, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, and I'm kind of hard pressed to see that. And so I think that's really cool looking back on seeing a movie where, hey, we just went and saw a movie and we're all talking about, we were all relatively the same age when it came out. And it wasn't like, oh, that was a chick flick or, oh, that was a, whatever. And we could enjoy it too. It was like, no, this is just a movie and it's a story primarily about women and starring women in the main roles and the whole thing. And I'm kind of getting off the plot here a little bit in my answer, but yeah, it was just a great story. It was heartwarming. And yeah, I'm admittedly not the most knowledgeable on baseball and I'm not the biggest fan, not in terms of I don't like it, but it's just in terms of how much I watch it. But yeah, it really shows an aspect of it from a historical perspective that's fascinating. And I mean, the love of the game definitely comes through in it. And I just think that's pretty awesome stuff.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I wish I could have found more on this story. I found a Q&A session that somebody had with Penny Marshall after they had done a showing of the movie. It was Penny Marshall and Lori Petty were together for this Q&A. And she was talking about it, and she said, well, this was a script that nobody... She said, I tried to buy the rights to this. She said, I saw a kind of a documentary, or I'd heard about this women's baseball league from the 40s, and she's like, and nobody remembers it. Like, it was put in place by Wrigley in 1943, and lasted until 1954, and then after that, people pretty much forgot about it. She said, well, I stumbled across a documentary on this. I loved it. I wanted to make a movie about it. But here's the interesting part, because to me, I would have thought people might have jumped at the chance, so I would love to know more about this. If anybody listening knows, please call in, chime in, let us know. Apparently, she wanted the script to be written completely by women. She wanted the story and screenplay done completely by women, and every woman writer that she asked passed on it. Nobody wanted to do it. So that's why she then had to go to Lowell Gantz, who had done Laverne and Shirley with her, and Babalu Mandel, and she knew that they could write women characters. So, she went to them, and they knew baseball, so she wanted them to be the ones that wrote it. But apparently she tried to, at first pass, she tried to have this be a movie directed by women, starring women, written by women, and all the women writers passed on it. So I would be curious to know. I tried to find what I could to see why that was the case. Couldn't find anything, but that came straight from her. So I'm assuming that's not a made up story.
I think
interesting.
I think it's telling about what was important for her in this story, and clearly the authenticity of the female experience. And it just happens, in this case, happens to be set in or around baseball. But I think I would assume that's what she was going for. She wanted it to be as real as possible. And it'd be interesting to see, luckily the writer she landed on had I would assume, a decent sense of writing from the female perspective, but it would have been interesting to see what a female writer would have done with this story and what they may have stressed more or less than what we got. And that's cool that was her anthem with this was really trying to capture the female mindset and the female experience, the female viewpoint.
Now, I didn't ask this question initially, and Pat, you said you kind of remember going to see this in the theater. I'm assuming this was not anybody's first viewing of this movie.
Mm-mm.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured. We actually watched it, was it about a year ago? I knew that this one was going to be coming up for our 92 movies, but it was probably about a year ago now. It might even been about this time last year. I was looking for something to watch with the kids, and so I'm always looking for like a good PG movie that's, you know, got a good message to it. It's got some funny parts to it, but we can all watch it together regardless of, you know, how old we are. And I kind of stumbled across, I think it was around the time I might have been making the list for this year. So it would have been like spring, summer of last year. And I remember coming across this one. I was like, okay, let's do this one. I remember this one being rated PG. I remember it being probably mostly fine. So I'll take a look real quick and we'll put it on. And the kids really enjoyed it. And it was kind of funny because, you know, at first John was like, oh, it's a girls movie about baseball. I mean, I like the baseball part, but then as we got to watching the movie, like Nora loved it and John ended up really enjoying it too. And I mean, he thought, you know, some of his favorite parts to it, I remember, were he just thought it was hilarious that Tom Hanks had to start in on the, are you crying?
Are you crying?
No.
Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
But it was fun because it was one of those movies where the whole family could enjoy it. One of the rare occasions that every single member of the family enjoyed equally the movie that we had put on to watch together.
Right.
Because there was something for everybody. You know, Sharon and I had seen this movie before and really enjoyed it. You know, we get some of the humor that the kids didn't get. And then John gets a baseball movie because he loves baseball. You know, Nora gets a movie where it's got some funny parts to it. And, you know, she gets to watch a women's baseball team playing at a time when that wasn't something that was typically happening. I had read up a little bit on how in real life, the league that was created was pretty much profitable from the beginning. Like they didn't really struggle as much as it shows that they did in this movie. And that they almost to kind of what we were talking about with the trailer, that in this movie they showed, you know, having to kind of pressure the girls into using gimmicks and using tricks and, well, you know, do this, like a little bit more flair, or, you know, wear the short skirts or things like that to get people to watch. When I guess in reality, the women's league, you know, they were playing in towns that didn't typically have live baseball that you could watch. So it sounded like plenty of people were coming out to the games. They didn't have to do that kind of stuff in real life. So I think that might have just been a case a little bit like that trailer where the movie makers thought, all right, well, we got to kind of play this up and do some gimmicky, funny stuff for the movie.
There's got to be some drama. It would be fun to read the book, you know, whatever the book is on this, or a book, or, you know what I'm saying? It would be fun to read just kind of the account and go through and get a little bit of the fact versus fiction type of thing. I did notice on this rewatch a heck of a lot more. I was more attuned to just how much of how closed society was to women, right? I mean, because I always remember, and maybe it's just because I saw it a lot more when I was younger. It was always like, oh yeah, well, they're the bad guys and they're just kind of keeping these people down. But then no, when you see it and just kind of it all washed over me this time, like just how closed that whole thing was, you know, not just, oh, well, you got to play in skirts or whatever, but just the things people calling out to them from the stands and laughing and nastiness. And just, it was, yeah, that piece of it seemed a lot more prevalent this time.
Yeah. The one scene that I really enjoy, and I've noticed it more the last two times that I've watched this movie, is the scene where they're warming up before one of the games and the ball goes off towards the first baseline, and there's a group of African-American women standing there, and one of them picks up the ball and just wails it much farther than you would think she would, and they just kind of like smile and nod at each other. And I'm like, you know what? Number one, I love that scene for everything that is not said in that scene, but that you completely understand what is not being said. And that scene, you know, if it was one of those things of like, let's make a sequel to A League of Their Own, like that would be the sequel I would love to see.
Was there an African American women's baseball league?
That's what, you know, I started to go look it up, and I kind of ran out of time before we started recording. So I'll take a look. Give me a minute.
I mean, that
talk
scene
amongst
you're talking
yourselves.
about is that scene is very poignant, and like you said, it's what they don't say that makes the scene say everything you need to know.
Yeah, they did. I know they didn't allow them in that league, and I don't think they had their own league, from what I recall.
What I found here
It's
very
been a
quickly
while.
is the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League never integrated, so black women had no professional league in which to play. They instead had to play in semi-pro or recreational leagues or carve out spaces in male leagues.
Because Jackie Robinson had already broken the color barrier in baseball by the time this story unfolds. But yeah, I mean, we see that scene and it triggers a lot of the history that we already know, which is why they don't have to explain a lot of anything in that scene. But it does beg the question about African American female athletes and what their opportunities were in terms of being able to try to do a thing. And it comes at a decent time in the movie too, because we're starting to see the progression and acceptance of the women's baseball. And you know, as a movie viewer, you're sitting going, okay, good, people are getting into it. They're starting to find some success. It's growing. It's doing what it's supposed to do. A 15-second scene, and you're like, but there's so much more room for growth here.
Yeah, and they linger on it just enough where you like, yeah, that was well done.
So that's where I would love to see, because I was looking it up really fast, and most of the information here on kind of the history of black women in baseball is that they played in the Negro leagues. And so they played alongside men, but they never really had, you know, for lack of a better term, a league of their own. But there were women playing in, and even black women playing in some of those teams, even as early as, let's see, the earliest year I see here is there may have been women playing baseball in those leagues as early as 1867 or 1883. But it was just kind of one-off players. It was like one woman played on this team, and she was the only one in the league. And it says there were, you know, several more. They were going to start a league for black baseball teams in 1908 in Ohio, and it just kind of never got off the ground. But it looks like all through, you know, from the 1870s, 1880s, all the way up through in the 1930s, they had women playing on the men's teams in the Negro National League. So, I mean, so there were one-off people. So here's what I would love to see. I know we're kind of getting off a little bit on a tangent from A League of Their Own, but I'd love to see a movie about that.
Sure.
Like, I would love to see a movie. I mean, pick one of those athletes and show us a movie with the same heart and the same kind of storytelling that you get from A League of Their Own. I'd love to see more of that story. You know, like you just said, from that 10 to 15 second scene, that's got me going, I want to see more of that. Do you have a favorite player or a favorite character, and tie that in with maybe while they're playing in the baseball games, but also kind of their backstory as we learn more about them on the bus and in the house? Do you have a favorite player on the team?
I liked All the Way May. She cracked me up, man. I liked seeing Madonna there. It was just perfect. I really enjoyed her role in the movie.
Well, she's a great athlete. She gets home runs all the time. That's why they call her All the Way May.
That's right. That's right. What was it? Hi, I'm All the Way May. And that's not just my name. That's like my way of life, or however she said it.
Yeah, I think it feels like it's an attitude.
Yeah.
It's an attitude. No, May. It wasn't All the Way May. It was May. And that's not just my name, but that's my attitude. See, right? Because you may. It's just like, oh my God, that is awesome.
I don't know if I have a favorite ball player on the team. They're all great, and some of them are very stereotypical of people you see on different sports teams. I'm especially thinking of Rosie O'Donnell's character, who's always repeating everything.
Yeah.
You know, like I know people. I've played games with people like that are always, whatever they say it twice.
I love that first scene with her when they are showing up to the field for the tryouts, and she's like, she and Madonna. She's like, well, some of you are going to have to go home. What do you mean, some of us? And then they throw the ball, and Geena Davis catches it with one hand, and she's like,
some of them are going to go home.
Some of them are going to have to go home. How did you do that? And like her just the immediate change in her demeanor.
Yeah, she did a really nice job with this role. I mean, again, they're all a lot of fun. They're really fun characters, and I think they all bring a genuineness to them. They're very passionate about playing ball, but they're also very passionate about the lives that they left behind to be able to play ball. And throughout the movie, you get a sense that they're still connected to that life. They're finding balance between playing ball or then having to choose what is life going to be like at the end of the season.
Yeah, and without putting the cart too much ahead of the horse, but that there's a war on and many of their husbands are fighting it, and that telegram scene that was very sobering.
Yeah, what did Dennis say about that scene? He just said it's very, very powerful.
Dennis was not able to make it to our recording tonight, but we always like to have him on whenever we talk about baseball movies because he's also a big baseball fan. He had mentioned that some of the cast, when they were preparing for the baseball training, it was done here in Chicago, and it was where his dad had coached swimming.
I think it's at IIT.
Yeah.
Yeah, IIT.
Yeah. Dennis said, if you get a chance to mention that I absolutely love this movie. The ending Hall of Fame scene and the closing credits makes me tear up every time. He said the wife of the soldier when she gets the death notification is a powerful scene. And he said this movie for him, he just hits a home run in all categories, pun intended: character, story, performances, drama, comedy, action. And he said, I used the quote, if it was easy, everybody would do it, repeatedly over the years when he's coaching. And then he loved the balance of the comedy and drama for Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks knocked it out of the park in this. It's one of my favorite things about this movie is you see the growth of Jimmy Dugan, right? You see the women learn confidence in a world that is trying to tell them what they should be. But then you also see Jimmy Dugan softening himself and appreciating the opportunity he has to work with these women, right? Tom Hanks handled that really well. And I think of that scene when Betty Spaghetti gets that notification letting her know that her husband was killed in the war. And, Jimmy Dugan grabs her and just holds her and tries to comfort her. And you definitely don't get a sense that that's what he would have done as the character he was when he's first introduced or his first couple of ball games. And, for all the characters, it's a slow progression throughout the film to show that growth and to show that change. And I love that relationship between Jimmy and Dottie and the mutual respect and almost kind of like, they learn to see each other as equals. And what they do for each other. And, she gets him to quit drinking, right? She hands him a bottle of Coke or something on the bus. And, he encourages her to fight when it gets too hard. That's one of the best scenes, one of the best lines in the movie, one of the best scenes in the movie, when he's like, look, you want to go back to Oregon and have 100 kids or whatever, great. I'm in no place to tell you how to run your life. But quitting, walking out, quitting, you're going to regret that. And she said, and she alludes to the fact that, things just got too hard. I'm going to pull up the quote because I just want to make sure I get it right. Let me Google that for you. If you want to go back to Oregon and make 100 babies, great. I'm in no position to tell anyone how to live. But sneaking out like this, quitting, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Baseball is what gets inside you. It's what lights you up. You can't deny that. And she says it just got too hard. And he says it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. You know, I love that line. I love that scene. And I love the fact that it's interchangeable. You take baseball out of that and put in whatever it is you're struggling with. And if it's something you're passionate about,
yeah, because
you have to keep going with it.
Well, and it's interesting because the baseball wasn't hard for her. I mean, that's the whole thing that got me is that, you know, it was all they were talking about baseball, but the only thing that was hard for her was, her sister.
Yeah, right. Life got too hard.
So, I mean, because like the baseball wasn't fine, like the schedule was fine, the life was fine. Like, her husband seemed to enjoy, hey, no one's shooting at me. I'm just going to go watch my wife play baseball. Like,
right. He was the best. He's like, that's my wife.
Yeah, I know. So it was interesting because, either A, she was just copying an excuse. It's just too hard. Like, to which really it was like, okay, well, this isn't about that. Or, even within the bounds of the movie, they were speaking about baseball, but it was really about life and family and all that kind of stuff. Because, I don't... Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. I don't mean to say this as in any way, shape, or form as like a disagreement, because I am not. But the baseball wasn't hard for her. It was having a sister and trying to see her do well and all that. That was the hard piece.
Yeah, I think it's just balancing everything is what was too hard for her. And then once her husband was back in the picture, trying to prioritize what's important. Baseball essentially ended her relationship with her sister. Does she run the risk of baseball potentially ending the relationship with her husband?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily enough, he was supportive enough to turn the car around and get her back in time, or she drove back in time for Game 7 of the World Series.
So my last question for us, and then if you guys, anything else you want to add, we can add as well. But my last question for us is the beginning of the movie, which is, this entire movie is pretty much a flashback to when she was playing in the 40s. The beginning of this movie, she is, you get a sense that she's grandma and she hasn't left the room that she's been in for a while. We do learn later on that her husband passed away, the winter before. Did the beginning of the movie and her, you get a sense that older Dottie has kind of shut herself off from the world. Did that bother anybody? That kind of actually bothered me this time around. I'm like, well, what I know of her character from earlier in the movie when it's Geena Davis playing her, she seems like a strong, confident person. She's got struggles and she wanted to check out when things started to get hard. But I'm like, I don't know. Something about that bothered me this time. Like, I felt like her character should have been different. That, yes, maybe she kind of closed herself off because her husband died recently, but I don't know. It just kind of seemed like she was much less sure of herself than I felt like she could have been decades after having played on this team and gone through that experience. I don't know. Did that bother anybody else, or is that just me being weird?
It's you being weird.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it much because I have to admit, as much as I've seen this movie, I've probably seen the first 10 minutes the least of any of the rest of the movie. I don't know if it's I have a tendency to find it flipping channels or what, but I don't know if I'd seen that scene with Dottie packing the suitcase in years.
Okay.
What gave you the sense that she hadn't left the house in a while?
The way her daughter said something about it'd be nice if you left the room or something like that.
And the kids playing basketball in the driveway were like, "Oh, Grandma's outside, and Grandma left her room," and like everybody was making a big deal out of it.
There must be a fire.
Yeah. So I don't know. Something about that, it kind of caught me this time, and I was like, well, that just seems odd. It seems like after everything she went through, decades later, after having lived a life, that she would still be that unsure of herself, or I don't know. I just, for some reason, it kind of it stuck with me this time, and it bothered me just a little bit.
Definitely not in keeping with her character, and I don't know if they ever, except when they show her at the field and feeling like she's back with her girls, I don't know that they ever dive deep enough to explain it.
Yeah, something must have happened, and maybe it was Bob's death.
Yeah,
that did it. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I guess it is odd that she isolated herself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you definitely get the sense at the end of the movie that she's distanced herself from her sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I'm not going to say she distanced herself. We don't know what, but there's distance between them. They're not as close as they were. You definitely get that sense. And I think, and I like the angle that, there's Dottie walking around by herself, and here's Kit with her full family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dottie always seemed to, she never wanted to go play baseball. She really didn't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, she, it was Kit kind of got her going. And then she was the one that wanted to quit too. Like, yeah, Bob and I, we got some land in Oregon or wherever they were going, so she was, I don't want to say reluctant, because once they got playing, she was like the one that was like, oh, we need to do something to fire up. I'll do full splits and catch the ball. She was all in, but she seemed kind of like the reluctant hero, right? And you just wonder, if we kind of reverted a little bit to that, especially after she became advanced in ages and her husband passed on and so forth. That was kind of like, my gut reaction to that situation.
All right. Well, do you guys have anything else before we jump into our 3 questions? Got anything else you want to say about A League of Their Own?
Is there a more iconic Tom Hanks has a billion iconic moments, but There's No Crying in Baseball has to be top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
The look on his face, I watched it twice this time around. Just the sheer incredulity that he is displaying. What is happening right now? My manager, blah, 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 blah. So good.
I always like when the umpire walks up and he's like, "What's going on?" And he just looks at the umpire. It's like, "She's crying, sir."
That whole thing, he's like, I don't know how to handle this. I was not trained for this moment.
Well, and what's great is that line.
I was told there would be no crying.
Yeah. Well, what's great is that line can be adapted to so many things.
Oh, I know, and it has been, and will continue to be.
Yeah.
There's no crying in tech support. Actually, there is.
But again,
unfortunately, there is lots of it. There probably shouldn't be, but
it showcases the growth, though, of Jimmy Dugan and Tom Hanks' portrayal of Jimmy Dugan.
Oh yeah,
to go from that and the way he's just screaming at Evelyn because he's just pissed, to that moment at the end when she does the same thing, and he's keeping it together, and you can tell he's struggling to keep it together.
I need you to work on that for next year.
But no, hold on. Because I think that in his struggle to keep it together, what's making him angry isn't the same thing that made him angry the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely not.
There's something totally different that's getting to him about the fact that she blew the cutoff person. Right? It's not about the fact that she doesn't know how to play baseball. The frustration is definitely something different, which I love. I love the fact that it's coming from a managerial position of wanting players to succeed.
Right.
And then to still keep it together and not blow up at her. That whole thing was just, I really like that moment.
The frustration almost seems like it's more with himself. Like he's like willing himself to be a better manager by reacting to his players in a way that they need to be reacted to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like he's learned how to reach them at their level and meet them at their needs, right? As opposed to treating them like he was treated when he was a ball player. Yeah. I mean, this movie is so wonderful. It's so genuine. There's so much heart, not just heart and love of the sport, but heart and love of relationships and people and those in our lives that whether we're with them for a season or we're with them throughout our lives, all of that is in this movie and what we're capable of doing and helping each other do and support each other do. And, you know, just you look at that Dottie Jimmy relationship and how it grew and, you know, when he offers her the tobacco and, you know, that's his little way of bringing her in and saying, we're equals. We're equals now. You know, and then later when she spits and he's like, oh, that was a good one. You know, like
sounded good.
Yeah, like it. I don't know. There's just there's so much that's very special about this movie, which I guess circling back to the very beginning of this episode, that trailer just kind of pisses me off because it just it doesn't touch on any of this, and it sets the women up to be the butt of the jokes in the movie, and that's just not what happens. Are they? Yeah, I guess at some points they are. But that's not what this movie's about, and it's just a shame that that's where the trailer landed. And I hope that it didn't dissuade people from wanting to see this movie.
So if you haven't seen A League of Their Own, go watch it, but don't go watch the trailer.
No.
Avoid the trailer like the plague.
Screw the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Avoid the trailer, Jimmy Dugan.
There you go.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan.
That's good advice.
Solid advice.
All right, on that note, 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
John, if I may, I apologize. I
go for it.
didn't squeak this one in before you put the bit. The soundtrack was phenomenal. The soundtrack was just amazing, and it's all just big band swing, and it is so great to listen to. And there's times that it's kind of diegetic music, but it's not. But it's the soundtrack, and then they'll alter it to fit the scene. And I wish I had examples to give you, but like they'll need it to. Oh well, we're just gonna have like this drum roll going in the middle of it, and it fit with whatever was going on in the scene. So just fantastic music, great to listen to. I think really represented what was going on in the show or in the story, and in a period appropriate way because it was all like big band swing. So I just had so much fun listening to the soundtrack. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right, question number 1 of our 3 questions. If you could take one ride on a team or athlete's tour bus, whose would it be?
The Madden Cruiser.
Boom. I can just see him drawing lines on the map.
I know.
Yeah.
We're going to go here, then we're going to go here, we're going to hit the Sizzler here, and then the Waffle House there, and then we're going to make it to practice right in time.
We're going to drive up I-94, and you know, the guy that gets there first is the one that drives the fastest. Thanks, John.
Oh, love it. Everything about it.
I know what my answer is, but I don't want to steal Jeff's answer, and I think it could be similar. So,
You mean the 2016 Chicago Cubs?
There we go.
Although I'm hesitant to say that only because, like, you know, they say you shouldn't meet your heroes.
Right.
I hold that team in such high regard that I would be afraid that I would learn something about them or some of the individuals that would make it really difficult to appreciate the accomplishment of that season.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd want to be on any tour bus.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, I mean, come on. 2016 2016 Cubs.
And see, that was going to be my answer too, because my first answer would have been the 1992 Dallas Cowboys. But for the same reason, because knowing what I know now about that Dallas Cowboys team, I don't know how many guns or how much cocaine would have been on that tour bus, and I don't know that I'd want to have met my heroes. So knowing what some of those gentlemen got in trouble for later, so that's why I kind of went the route of, I feel like all the stories we saw, like when you see it on the news, that it seemed like the 2016 Cubs, it was just like a fun group of guys to be like, it looked like they were having fun while they were winning games. You know, just having fun outside of the games. So that's why that one would have been my choice. Otherwise, I'd probably say 92 Cowboys.
Well, this one's hard. It'd have to be like a race team or something like that. I honestly, my favorite rider was Nicky Hayden, and the year that he won the world title was pretty epic with some pretty incredible races, and I think that would be pretty awesome just to kind of ride around on that and watch him ride and do all that kind of thing. So. Yeah, I'd say the 06, not that they did tour buses. I mean, they basically flew in private jets from one area of the world to the other. But, you know, the figurative tour bus, I'd say the 06 MotoGP and Nicky Hayden's Honda crew would be fun.
Oh, what have you got?
Oh, I said the Madden Cruiser already. Sorry,
you said
I thought
the
you were
Madden
on
Cruiser.
question.
That's right. What am I? Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm moving on to question 2. I've been thinking about this one all day. Sorry, Madden Cruiser.
Yeah, Madden Cruiser. You already said that one. All right.
Sorry, my brain had reset to the second question.
Well, because I was
having trouble.
No, I was expecting you to say something like the 85 Bears, so I think that's why I was.
No, I dovetailing on what you said. I know some of them personally now. I don't know if I could have hung with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't meet your heroes.
Oh,
Don't meet
meeting
your
them's
heroes.
great. I love those guys.
Don't get acquainted
not.
with your
I mean, I was a champ in my early 20s. Don't get me wrong, but I got nothing on those guys.
Bo did cocaine like nobody's business in his early 20s.
They're the stories that I've heard, and you know, fish stories at best. But man, even if half of what I've heard over the years is true, couldn't do it. I'd be dead.
I used to go over to Bo's house every once in a while. It was like the scene from Scarface.
With some action figures on the wall.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
It was
what
like
goes on in these? What goes on in those tech department meetings, guys?
It was crazy. You go over,
brother.
It was crazy. You go over to Bo's house for a party, and he's sitting there, just a mound of powder on the kitchen table, and he's pointing to his Star Trek plates, going, "Say hello to my little plates."
Oh no!
I imagine something like the cruise boat scene in The Wolf on Wall Street.
Oh, there you go.
Where everybody say "Hey ho!" and as their arms are flopping, you just see the dust flying. And
All right, number 2. If you were sent to etiquette school, what would you struggle with the most?
Behaving myself at etiquette school.
Are you right? Like the whole thing sounds like something I would not do well.
Like I'd very much be like Kit, who like just giggles.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lady reveals nothing.
My dad, big on, you know how parents like have a thing that drives them crazy. I think all parents like do this. My dad, to this day.
I call them my children.
kids. Jeff, I was Jeffrey. I was said the same thing at the same time. That's hilarious.
Well done, boys.
Anyway,
I'm trying to show this, but my camera doesn't show it. My dad has a thing with elbows on the table. Drives him nuts. To this day, elbows off the table. I am 40 years old. I'm going to put my elbow on the table if I want to. So that's probably where I would struggle the most. But really, the whole thing would go so good.
yeah, I would not do well.
I'm
I
good
still
with the
struggle.
silverware, though. I'm actually really good with like the forks and stuff.
I still struggle when I have to say the word duty when we talk about like
Yes.
the duty of the president. Like
Or doo-doo, or
I would not do well in etiquette school at all.
I already twice earlier today in an admin meeting, somebody said, well, we do have to do this. And I'm like, they said do twice. And I was, come on, guys.
When that stuff happens, game over. I got nothing. By the way, the one place wearing masks is great is when that happens, because you can snicker to yourself and nobody knows.
Yeah. Mine would also be I would struggle with the elbows on the table, because I put my elbows on the table all the time. And I was actually telling the kids this the other day. We had, when I was in England in school, when you have lunchtime, it was like family-style lunch. So we had these big, long tables, and it was either one of the older boys or a teacher or the principal of the school sitting at the head of the table. And the principal we had was this older man, and he spoke so slowly, and he spoke in ways that no one understood. And so a lot of and he had a thing about, table manners and etiquette and stuff like that. I vividly remember there was a time that he pointed to this kindergartner that was sitting at our table, and he just goes, "Eagle, your wings are showing." And that was his way of telling a 5-year-old that he needed to take his elbows off the table. And we all just sitting there going, what is this guy talking about? And he repeated it several times. "Eagle, your wings are on, your wings are showing." And finally, like a couple of us figured out, we're like, okay, kid, the elbows out. That's what yes, it's the elbows. Get them off the table. It's like, what planet are we on?
Yeah. Jeez.
All right. Did we get yours, Pat?
I don't know. I'd struggle with a lot of stuff.
I feel like you would go head first into your soup. You'd just fall asleep.
Yeah, language, appropriate mealtime conversation. I'd probably struggle with those things.
All right, number 3, you immediately gain the skills to pay the bills for one sport, and you get to play that sport professionally for one season. What sport dost thou choose?
Motorcycle racing.
All right, Pat has motorcycle racing.
Well, that was going to be mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Plenty of room in the motorcycle racing.
I'm totally kidding. That was not going to be mine at all.
You can sit in the sidecar.
See, that I would do. Pat, get a motorcycle with a sidecar, and I'll join you.
I'm just going to ask because, like, any excuse to talk about motorcycles. Have you ever seen motorcycle sidecar racing?
No, I just was saying that as a joke.
So I'll send some videos.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, all right.
Now I'm curious.
I'll watch some videos. Bo, what do you got?
Probably baseball. I know it's simplistic because it's what we just watched, but you know what? That's what I would like to do.
Agreed. What position would you want to play?
Ooh, see. I'm healthy, I'm young, and all that jazz. I would probably still want to be the catcher. I loved that when I was playing Little League and whatnot. But, as I got older, like if it was, now I'd probably just want to be the manager. I'm good.
That was, if I played, I always wanted to be the catcher.
I was good for a hot minute when I was like...
Under the assumption that I indeed have the skills that pay the bills, as John put it.
You do.
I think I'd want to play first base, preferably for the Cubs, but, if I get to play baseball, then that's good enough.
I'm going to be, if this is the thing where we immediately get the skills that we need to play at a professional level, and then we get to do that for one season, I'm just going to go all out and say, I want to play for the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. I want to do the whole chanting thing at the beginning and intimidate my opponents and
go big or go home, man.
Eat the flesh of my enemies after the game is over. And I think that's going to do it for our 3 questions and for A League of Their Own. So if you have not seen this, again, avoid the trailer, but go see this movie because it's amazing.
It's too important to not see.
Yeah, don't go to the trailer. So we are the 30-something podcast. You can find us at 30podcast.com. Don't forget to check out our website. It's got all the different links where you can find all of our older episodes. We have a little showcasing there of some recent or not so recent episodes that if you have not listened to us before, other than maybe tonight, you have some episodes that are kind of a good showcase of our most popular ones. So we've got some good stuff up there. And actually, pretty recently, we had a new addition to that. One of our more recent episodes just got a bunch of downloads very, very quickly. So
that was me. I was having trouble with my phone.
Oh, you downloaded that one episode like 500 times?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was good though. It was good. I enjoyed it. Which Which episode was that again?
It seemed like you enjoyed it. That was our My Cousin Vinny episode. In its first week, we got a lot more downloads than we normally get in the first week of some of our episodes. We got a lot for the My Cousin Vinny one, so
nice.
So it's pretty
well,
good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So apparently we just need to become a My Cousin Vinny podcast.
I think we could swing that.
We could do that.
The My Cousin Vinny Minute.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. A minute with Vinny. The Vinny Minute. There we go.
The Vinny Minute.
The Vinny Minute. Vinny Minute podcast. Try saying that 3 times real fast. On
Did
all the different.
Did anyone bump on that movie where they spell Vinny with a Y? Is that just me? Is that my? Okay, never mind. Let's move on.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about it for like a hot second, but other than that,
nah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sticks out in my mind.
Okay. All right.
Vinny spelled with a Y. I don't understand. I don't understand why Vinny spelled with a Y.
Okay.
But
it is. That's a fact. So you can also find us, 30podcast.com is our website. You can find us in all the different social media spots. At 30podcast is what we typically are. Our next episodes coming up for the rest of the month of February are a lot of our female-centric movies that we're looking at. So we've got our Patreon is going to be favorite movies. Our Women in Film is kind of that episode. So it's going to be a lot of different questions related to women in film. I think we're all feverishly working on that one right now to nail down our choices for those different categories. We've also got coming up next week is Basic Instinct. After that is Single White Female. After that is Sister Act. And then we finish the month with a recommendation from Jason Colvin from the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. Jennifer was his suggestion for us.
Would that be Jason Colvin from the Podcast Full of Kryptonite?
And Podcast Full of Kryptonite. That's also a great podcast if you haven't listened to that one.
I enjoy that one. I enjoy that one.
Two-thirds of the hosts are amazing.
They're all awesome.
And then they have this
do a
other
great
guy.
job.
That's really not nice to say about Jason.
Maybe I was saying it about D.
This is between you and them now, my friend.
No. It's self-effacing. March we've got Far and Away, and at that point we're hitting our 400th episode, so we are redoing the first. We're going to do Gremlins, Ghostbusters, and Nightmare on Elm Street for our 400th episode. This time minus mariachi bands and the crunching of tacos. For the rest of March, we've got The Last of the Mohicans, Scent of a Woman, and The Bodyguard. Our Patreon in March. We're going to do the 1982 movie Death Trap, which is reaching its 40th anniversary this year. Did I ask before, or Jeff, you may not have been on before, have you guys seen that one? Have you seen Death Trap?
I've seen the play.
Okay.
When the theater that I used to work at, that was part of our subscription season one year. So
nice.
I was very, very familiar with that play.
Okay. It is I'm gonna blow the surprise right now. I have a lot of fun watching it. Like, I watched it for the first time a few years ago, and I don't know, just the combination of Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve, it was just a fun movie. And then let's see, we got in April, our Patreon in April is reaching its, what would that be, 70th anniversary is the movie. So we're gonna be doing that one in April as our Patreon. And then we've got Patriot Games, Under Siege, A Few Good Men, and Universal Soldier.
Movies are looking good for 92.
Got some good ones. Got some really good ones coming up.
There was a movie I came across recently in 92, or a 92 movie. What was it? I wasn't sure. Radio Flyer. Is that on our list of movies to do this year?
Radio Flyer. That's a good question. Let me consult the list.
We may have to consider putting that one on there.
Okay.
Although Pat may not like it.
Oh, okay.
Children in Peril and such.
Oh.
But Elijah Wood,
Mm-hmm.
incredible performance in that film.
Okay. It is, I don't believe it is currently on our list.
Well, we should look into that.
Okay. So maybe we'll consider that one.
If possible. If possible.
Oh, yeah. We have some spots. We have some Patreon spots open, and then we can always, throw some stuff in there here and there. It's not like we have day jobs or anything, so we can do that.
No.
The children practically teach themselves.
Well, that's what their Chromebooks are for.
Don't say that too loud around Bo. All right. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. And thank you, gents, for being here with me.
Hey, thank you, John, for getting
Thank you, John.
All right. See you next time, everybody.